I'm Gina Lee, and I'll be sharing what I've learned through studying interactions at intersections between bikers, cars, and pedestrians from the biker's perspective. Intersections can be dangerous and confusing at times. Through research, I wanted to understand the expectations and behaviors bikers have when interacting with cars and pedestrians and contribute to creating a safer riding experience for bikers. My goal was to identify common behaviors that bikers engaged in, comprehend their expectations, and eventually make recommendations and find opportunities to enhance the biker's overall experience. Unfortunately, I didn't use any literature as a foundation for my research. Instead, to achieve my research goal, I asked, what are pain points that bikers have at intersections? And what are bikers' experiences with and the expectations of cars and pedestrians at intersections? My methodology included 3 parts: a field study, interviews, and a survey, with my target users being bikers who have interacted with both cars and pedestrians at intersections. I initially didn't know which group I wanted to observe, but I chose to study bikers because this was an accessible population and seemed to have the most interesting interactions while conducting my field observations. My findings framework illustrates the intersection between actual behaviors and expectations, and in between that is the ideal interaction. And within actual behaviors is the communication methods that the bikers employ to communicate with cars and pedestrians. Key findings. My first theme was what bikers expect at intersections. For interactions at intersections, I found that bikers already have an idea of how the interaction should work. For example, that might be understanding the right-of-way or expecting people to be unpredictable. Bikers often have different expectations and standards for cars and pedestrians. Participants in both interviews and surveys had difficulties interacting with cars and pedestrians. With cars, my interviewees shared that they wanted cars to stop for them, but aren't surprised when they don't. 10 out of 17 survey respondents agreed with the statement, "Cars should stop for me," and the average certainty rating of a car's behavior at intersections was 2.8 out of 10. Interviewees claimed that they were skeptical of cars and practiced more caution, especially when interacting with them. With pedestrians, 10 out of 17 bikers disagreed with the statement, "Pedestrians should stop for me," but the average certainty levels were 2.5 out of 10 for behavior. Interviewees claimed that even though they recognized that they should stop for pedestrians, they expected pedestrians to stop for them because, quote, "it's hard to stop and get momentum going again," end quote, or be more, quote, "cognizant of bikers going both ways," end quote. Bikers are caught in a murky middle zone when interacting with cars or pedestrians. They expect that they should wait for pedestrians, but are vulnerable to cars and in turn need to be careful in watching out for both. Bikers seem to have consistent expectations of cars and pedestrians, but their expectations aren't always met. This leads to bikers having to react and have practices to deal with the uncertainty in car and pedestrian behaviors. I recommend installing parabolic mirrors so that bikers can see approaching cars or pedestrians and anticipate their pace and time their approach for a clear right-of-way. My second theme is what bikers actually do. I found that bikers engage in various practices such as pace moderation, communicating verbally and non-verbally, and use previous experience to inform their decisions. During my field observations, I noticed that bikers would pace themselves if they could see ahead. Bikers would stop pedaling and slow down as they approached an intersection involving cars to see what the car would do. There was an instance I noted when a biker and a van were approaching the intersection, and the biker slowed to see if the van would stop or go, and continued once they were sure the van stopped. My interviewees also shared what they did when approaching an intersection. One interviewee said that they would, quote, "just look both ways," end quote, because that's what they were taught. Others would gesture or completely stop to indicate that they would wait for the pedestrian. These practices leaned towards reactive behavior and were centered around safety, like looking both ways to see approaching cars or pedestrians to prevent a collision. However, there seems to be a balance between remaining in motion and staying safe. Bikers know that they should stop for pedestrians, but my field observations and interviews have revealed that that is not a common practice for bikers. If a car or pedestrian is approaching the intersection, the bikers can then better prepare themselves to stop. This should help clarify the right-of-way, which is an issue in this theme, and assist bikers to know when to stop or when it should be safe to cross. My third theme is communicating with cars and pedestrians. I found that as a result of mismatched expectations, a practice that bikers employ is using various communication methods to clarify the right-of-way. With all three research methods, I was able to find that bikers would use verbal and nonverbal cues. During my field studies, I see bikers waving to say thanks to cars, or pedestrians gesture to go ahead with their head, or call out to pedestrians saying thanks. My interviewees all used verbal and nonverbal communications to communicate with pedestrians and with cars. My survey findings showed that bikers communicated with pedestrians through verbal and nonverbal means with cars and nonverbal gestures. Bikers would primarily communicate with cars using eye contact or hand gestures and communicate with pedestrians verbally or with hand gestures. For both cars and pedestrians, bikers employ different methods to stay safe and communicate during their interactions. Most bikers use hand gestures, turn signals, and eye contact with cars and pedestrians, which are all nonverbal methods for a quick visual interaction. Specifically for pedestrians, bikers use primarily verbal communication. However, most of these communication methods like eye contact, gesturing with hands, or verbal and nonverbal communications are reactive, and there should be a proactive way to combat these difficulties at intersections. A recommendation specifically for interactions between bikers and pedestrians is to implement a sound-based feature into a trail to communicate with the pedestrians how far or how quickly a bike is approaching. This could eliminate the need for verbal communications. An opportunity to change interactions between bikers and cars is to implement a visual or light-based communication system for safety. Next steps in this research will investigate the effect of signage and landscaping on the biker's riding experience. I took note of these topics in my field research and talked lightly about them during our interviews, but did not make any definite conclusions. I believe that there is an opportunity to improve both the safety and experience of bikers' rides along the trail and at intersections. I'd like to acknowledge Sarah Zuberg, Robin Martin Emerson, the other TAs, and my peers for their generous support and knowledge. Thank you.